Wonderful. So we're going to jump right in. I'm so excited to see everybody here. It's very fun to be able to connect in this way during this time. The webinar today will be 45 minutes. We're going to share different stories and perspectives on the importance of multicultural organ donation. And we have a wide variety of experience joining us today. To start, we'll have Lisa Upsher, the director of the Minority Organ Tissue Transplant Education Program at the Center for Organ Recovery and Education. We're really excited to hear from you about the importance of multicultural organ donation. Afterwards, we're going to hear from German Amezcua, who's a donor father, as well as a family resource coordinator at Donor Network West. Following German's donor father perspective, we'll hear from Jonathan Ford, a heart recipient and Donate Life ambassador. And finally, we'll hear from Valerie Chipman, who's the manager of the Operations Center at Donor Network West. And from Valerie, we'll learn about the science behind the importance of multicultural organ and tissue donation. My name is Sarah. I am the founder and president of Student Organ Donation Advocates. I'm also part of a donor family, and my team at SODA believes that students are a critical and untapped population to help reduce the critical organ shortage, and that student advocacy really can save lives. We are proud partners of Donor Network West, which is the OPO serving more than 13 million people in Northern California and Northern Nevada, and they help save and heal lives through organ and tissue donation. Within Donor Network West's service area, we support 2 chapters. We support University of Nevada, Reno, as well as Amador Valley High School in Pleasanton, California. And I see a few faces in the webinar from those campuses, so a special welcome to you guys. And SODA expands across the country. We have more than 20 chapters nationwide, as you can see here. Just so you know, this webinar is being recorded. And without further ado, I'm excited to welcome Lisa to talk more about the importance of multicultural organ donation.
Good evening, everyone. So it's truly evening for me because I'm on the East Coast, so it's around 7 o'clock. So Michael, if you want to help me out, you want to move to the next slide? Keep going. So as everything that we do, we always get up every day with a mission, a vision, and our values far as the Center for Organ Recovery is concerned, far as to save and to heal lives through donation. Continue. So what does CORE do? Well, a couple things is, like I said, we're in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. We are the conduit between organ donation and transplantation, basically evaluating and procuring deceased donors, coordinating transplants, transplant processing, talking to families, supporting our donor families. My job is educating the community to increase designation and managing communication. Shall we go? So we cover all of Southwestern Pennsylvania and all of West Virginia except for 4 counties. So that's about 5.2 million people. We partner with 150 hospitals and 70 transplant centers. So, you know, we're very busy. All right, Mike, let's go. They gave me 8 minutes, so I got to get this done. So I just wanted to introduce Francesca Ferrati. She is my co-worker, but she's also your co-partner as far as SODA is concerned. She is our core program and financial coordinator, and her job is to work with SODA at West Virginia University, Donate Life Pennsylvania's College Challenge, the Organ Tissue Donation Awareness Project, and she also runs core student camps. So that's Francesca. So I'm sure she'll be excited to meet and talk with you, Sarah, at some time. Next. So let's get down to the nitty-gritty of this. We're going to talk a little bit about national multicultural awareness. Currently, about 60% of the transplant waiting list comes from multicultural communities. So that's kind of made up of 29% African American, 20% Hispanic, 9% Asian Pacific Islander, 1% American Indian / Alaska Native, and 1% multiracial descent. So when we're talking about multicultural perspectives and outreach, just kind of give you some background or some of the national things that are being done. Our newest program is called the National Minority Action Group, NMAG, which is made up, which is really exciting. This is like the baby of the groups. This is where everybody has aligned together. AOPO, Donate Life America, AMAT, MOTTEP, HRSA, National Kidney Foundation. All of us have come together to focus on the importance of getting information out into the multicultural community as one voice. Then you have the Association of Multicultural Affairs and Transplantation, better known as AMAT, and then the National Minority Organ Tissue Transplant Education Program, better known as MOTTEP. And we'll chat a little bit about that. So one of the problems is, as we know, anyone that works with organ donation, is the myths and the misconceptions around why you should be an organ donor. Currently, this number's been kind of bouncing around. It's between 110 to 112 for us currently waiting on the life-saving transplant list. So we know that every day, every 10 minutes, someone's added to the register. Every day we lose about 20 people. And the myths and the misconceptions really get in the way of people saying yes. So some of the biggest issues with that is, all the donated organs go to the rich and the famous. If I'm an organ donor, I won't be able to have a regular funeral. Organ donations against my religion. Doctors won't work as hard to save my life, and I'm too old. So those are like our top five. But those are things that when we have conversations in the community, and especially in not just the multicultural community, but all communities take issue with these misconceptions and myths. So as I was telling before, NMAG, that is a collaboration. One of the things and the focus that we're working on with that program is to develop, their first initiative is National Minority Donor Awareness Month. This is really a neat concept because it started out being a day, and it was founded by actually the founder of MOTTEP, Dr. Clive Callender from Howard University. Started out being a day in the 90s, then it moved to a week. Then Donate Life America came together with us and we had ECHO. And with this group coming together with all of the organizations that work with organ donation, we have retired ECHO and we've expanded National Minority Donor Awareness to a month. So that's August 1st to the 31st. So some of the things that people can do as far as awareness is concerned, August is starting to have conversations with families, start working with the different multicultural communities as far as opening dialogues, different religious groups, on the importance in trying to reduce some of those fears and misconceptions as far as organ donation is concerned. As I mentioned also, proud member of AMAT. AMAT is the Association of Multicultural Affairs in Transplantation. And this is the professional network that comes together as far as education, communication, and working in all of the multicultural communities on the importance of organ donation. And they also do a lot of professional developments. Because if you think about it, and if you know anything about the organ procurement organizations or IBanks, there are very few minorities that work within those. So being a part of AMAT gives us all a chance to kind of work with someone of the same nationality, same field, and kind of talk about what they're going through and developing relationships and trust and mentoring to continue our development as professionals. Next. So this is Dr. Clive Callender. Like I said, he founded MOTTEP in 1991, and it was basically a threefold program for as increasing people becoming organ donors, developing healthy lifestyles, and people reducing the diseases that affect people as far as the minority background. Let's go. So what's some of the reluctance? Lack of transplantation awareness, religious beliefs and misperceptions, distrust of the medical community, fear of premature declarations of death, and the fear of racism. So remember when I first started talking about people just being afraid of the misconceptions, all of this plays into the multicultural community. And we also did research to find that. So let's kind of break them out a little bit. African-American community, there's really only like 25.8, like I said, they're waiting for transplants. African-American Blacks have a higher rate of diabetes, high blood pressure, and these are the things that cause them to be on the waiting list. Predisposed genetic disorders, all of those things cause for risk of early organ failure. Next. Asian American, Pacific Islanders, they really only make up like 5.6 of the national population. Just got through coming through Asian American Heritage Month in the month of May. So again, they have a lot of liver disease that affects this community, a lot of need for liver transplants. So therefore, you have to think about a couple things. You have a small population, then you're dealing with myths and misconceptions, and then you have the issues of living donors or deceased donors as far as getting that information into the community as far as the importance of organ donation. Hispanic community, they have a lot of the same issues as all of the ones that I've talked about before, but one of the really main issues too is there's a major language barrier that also affects them negatively. I was doing some studying the other day, and the United States has over 300 different languages. So, you know, that really is a deficit for anyone that's having health issues in trying to get care. Shall we move on? Now, Native Americans, now they, while they only make up like 1%, that's a lot for their population. And a lot of American Indians, Alaskans are known for having liver failure, again, some cases as far as hepatitis C is concerned. We have a thing now called the HOPE Act where people can get transplants regardless if they have hepatitis C. So that will help that community. But again, it's about the education. It is about integrating yourself into those communities, doing communication to get or break down those myths and misconceptions. So I know it sounds like an ongoing theme, but that's what's going on as far as working in the multicultural community. Religions are a big thing. I can't think of any time that I go out work in the community and someone says it's against my religion to be an organ donor. And I'm sitting there scratching my head trying to figure out what religion might that be. 99% of our religions believe that it is a good thing. Candy is blowing me up, time for me to jump off of here. But it is good for all of us to think about it. Now, the other thing is we used to do pre-COVID, we did large community events. Now we're gonna have to be really creative. We're gonna have to be virtual. We're gonna have to learn other ways to reach out to the community. So as I said, at least one donor can save up to 8 people through organ donation and heal up to 75. Anytime they're going to go through this again, but just remember, go to www.registerme.org for being an organ donor. And I'm going to step away for right now. So if you have any questions or thoughts or any of those things, I'll be around a little later to talk with you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Perfect, thank you. Dermot, do you want to take it away with your story as a donor father?
Of course. You see that Big smile there on that young man behind you there. That's my son, our son, Sebastian. And we'll go into the slides. We talk about why we do things. We all have a why. We're here because there's some connection with organ donation. If you're listening to us right now, it's impacted you in some way. And we'll go to the next slide. This is my why. These are my two monkeys. Monkey 1 and Monkey 2 is what we call them. Emmanuel, we call him Manu, and Sebastian, Sebas. Next. These are some of the pictures that we use in our collateral. 2007, December 2nd of 2007, we went to have breakfast. It was a Sunday, had breakfast with my parents, something that we didn't do that regularly, but that day we decided to do that. We went to church. I was working at a TV station at the time at Univision, and I was a research director. It was after November sweep, so I needed some information to send to Nielsen. So we went to the TV station, to my office, so the kids could see our turtle and pick up that information. Once I was headed home to decorate for Christmas, that was the plan. We were T-boned on the passenger side where my wife and that 5-year-old was sitting. So pretty much the way this picture looks, I'm driving, my wife's next to me, behind her is Emmanuel, behind me is Sebastian. It wasn't a bloody scene. When I looked around, to me, I thought I no longer had a family. I was helped out of the vehicle. I called 911 immediately. And somebody came up to me and says, "You were just in a car accident. I'll talk to them," which made a lot of sense to me. I let go of my phone and I never saw that phone again. I saw the best and the worst in people that same day. And this was in a part of town where it's very multicultural. So you have everybody there that was helping. I had an off-duty police officer who witnessed everything. So when they said the young man was leaving the scene, I was about to run after him, and I just felt the hand on my shoulder saying, "I'm an off-duty police officer. I got him." So I stopped what I was thinking and just went and concentrated on my family. And we'll go to the next picture. This was our last Christmas card. We had a tradition every year. We'd go to Disneyland and get a picture of the boys. Sebas loves Stitch. That's his Stitch hat. And that grumpy boy over there, that hat just fit him. This was 7 days before the accident. We'll go to the next slide. That is our vehicle. My wife was seated right there in the passenger seat, behind her, Emmanuel. 70 plus miles an hour, hitting a car that's going 45 plus miles an hour. I mean, we flew into that canal. There's so many different things that could have happened. A vehicle passing by hit us, and we could have rolled and ended up upside down in that canal. We'll go to the next slide. And there's that grumpy boy. Friends from Disneyland sent him a Mickey Mouse. He was born again. A lot of friends told us they prayed not only that he survived, but he had to be 100%. By the grace of God, he is. We'll go to the next slide. This is Randy and my sister Blanca. Randy's a physical therapist. I get to see Randy now when I go to Valley Children's Hospital. He is a physical therapist in the ICU. I've shared this picture with him. That's one of the fractures Emmanuel suffered on the right side, which is where the vehicle struck us. We'll go to the next. Carolyn has retired. She helped a lot. We were at CRMC at Community Regional Medical Center here in Fresno for 1 week. And for the remainder of the month of December, we were at Valley Children's for rehabilitation. We'll go to the next one. That's where Emmanuel learned how to talk, how to walk, everything all over again. And we celebrated every little milestone. He had a bowel movement. He fed himself. He got up. All these different little things that we take for granted. We'll go to the next one. We put him in sports. He was a good little baseball player while it lasted. We'll go to the next one. And today at 6:03, we're going to get to go to stadium and walk across the stage where he'll receive his diploma. This young boy is an amazing kid, great grades. He's going to Fresno State University. He studied at Berkeley during the past 2 summers. He's a math whiz. This kid did just enough to get into not the math honors, just one below that. He knew what to do. So when he was in high school, he was acing all his quizzes and in there with juniors and seniors, and everybody finally told him, hey, you need to take it easy. And my smart aleck kid turned to him and said, I am. That's why I'm in this class. So I asked him, like, and you weren't punched. We'll go to the next one. That was the first day of senior year, which was on his birthday, August 19th. He's 17 years old, so he'll graduate before he's an adult. Again, with this whole COVID thing, it's gotten obviously us to be together more. Nothing's really changed for our family. My wife works from home at Human Resources. I work in the hospitals as a family resource coordinator here for Donor Network West. Emmanuel's the one that's been here, and we've gotten really to see what kind of kid we have, and we're very proud of him. We'll go to the next slide, which is the donation process. And a lot of you obviously know this slide and know this process. When I first started with Donor Network West, like I said, I worked at Univision. I worked at a TV station, and I did that for many years. Got to use my position there to help out our morning show whenever we didn't have a guest and we needed help for content. And of course, I'll tell my story. I'll share my son, over and over. I don't get tired of it. I love sharing him. I don't always do it with families when I'm having a donation discussion. If I see that it will add something to that discussion, which Christmas of this past year, little ones at Valley Children's Hospital, little one's heart went to Canada. When we were walking that father to his truck, chaplain and myself, Dad looked at me and he said, looking at you gives me hope that I'm going to be okay. And I told the chaplain, and that's exactly why I share my story, because I know what it feels like. I know how much it sucks. But we might not be able to see that light, but it's there. It's a very long tunnel. It's going to have its ups and downs. When I first started Donor Network West, I was helping with education, and that's the biggest thing. Just recently, I was in Reno, spoke with a Hispanic family, 18-year-old son who was out with a skateboard and had an accident. He was declared brain dead. I went and spoke with him, with Dad and Mom. And the social worker tells me that's the most this dad has talked during his entire stay. And it's because I spoke his language, the language of comfort. I know where he's coming from. And I was able to make that connection with Dad. And that was one of my donors that he was able to save 6 lives. We can all save 8. That's the most lives that one donor was able to save that I help with. Being in media, I never thought I'd be in this position, but I'm so grateful for Donor Network West and for everything that you guys do to help the process. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for sharing your story. I'd like to pass it over to Jonathan Ford to share your story as a heart recipient.
Hello, everybody. How are you today? So, It's still difficult for me to hear the other side of the story. I I was a long-time coach in different 3 or 4 different sports, and kind of was in healthy shape, raised my heart on my sleeve, and basically just believed that everything was going to be okay. And one day I went to the doctor, and it wasn't going to be okay. They told me I had 3 to 5 years to live because of a hereditary disease that I got. My hereditary disease was sped up due to I had both markers, one from each parent. So I am what's called homozygous, which means that I have both markers. That day changed my life, but in many ways it changed it kind of for the better. I was a workaholic. I was in high tech in the Silicon Valley, working all the time. If I wasn't working, I was coaching sports, just running like crazy. And then this happened, and my wife and I decided to, at that point, to move up to Yosemite, which is where I'm coming to you right now, from my man cave here here by Yosemite. And the hardest part for me was kind of going back to something that German said about, his son, they pass away and they donate organs, and donors donate organs. It was very hard for me to know that somebody was going to pass away or had to pass away for me to live. And when you're praying for a heart, you don't realize there's this whole other side of it that comes along with it. And that is the person's heart that you're going to get. I think I have a picture of the young man. You can put that up. That's Corey. He's my donor hero. Young man who was doing opioid drugs and passed away from overdosing. 23 years old at the time. And, after I had my heart transplant, I was starting to do a little bit better with dealing with the side of it, the mental side of which I did not think about. The mental side is that 3 miles away, while I was waiting for a heart and my family was waiting for me to get one, 3 miles across San Francisco, his family was watching this young man pass away. And that is from a recipient side, is a very hard thing to deal with, which I did not expect as much as it did. When I saw the picture of him for the first time, it was extremely hard. It's been 2 years now, and I'm just now getting to the point where I can talk about the whole donor recipient ordeal without getting upset about it. So I'm finally getting mentally better, but there's that part of it that that goes along with it that I wasn't expecting. I was happy to get better and feel better, but then I've got this young man who passed away so that he didn't pass away so I could get better. It was going to happen regardless. That's what I have to keep reminding myself that this was going to happen, and it wasn't like I did something to cause this, but it was going to happen. But it's still hard because you start having survivor's remorse. You have all kinds of other things that come with this that, like I said, were not expected. I've become very, very close friends with his family. His family are like my family. I've had Thanksgiving dinner with the father and the sister who live here in the city. When the sister got married in Carmel, my wife and I were invited to the wedding. We've become family with them. We send each other presents and gifts. And going back to what I was saying about how hard things were, I was struggling at one point with something that I really hadn't thought about was every time March 5th came around, I was having a hard time celebrating my new birthday because I knew that his family was mourning his passing. So I called the mother one day and I said, I'm having this problem. And without even skipping a beat, she said, here's how we're going to do this. We will mourn his passing on March 2nd, and we will celebrate your new birthday on March 5th. It's conversations like that I have with her that help me get through a lot of problems that I said that I did not expect on this side of it. You know, you want to be healthy, you want to get well. I saw my new granddaughter get born. My family has expanded. I've added new family now to them with the Kalkagni family, who are my donor family. Love them to death. That we've done many things together. Got to know each other very well. And at this point, I still can't imagine what it would be like. And I hope I don't have this to ever lose a child or something like that, because that's got to be the most devastating thing that a family or a father, mother, and sister and brother can deal with. It's very hard. But knowing that there are people out there that are willing to help you stay here, help you be here, help you be alive, give you a second chance is wonderful. Joining Donor West has been something that, you know, my wife and I have always thought about the type of foundation we would like to do someday when I was working full time, and we wanted to do something to help kids and help people along. And then this happened, and I found Donor West, which I am extremely passionate about because of the experience that I've gone through. So it gives me something, it gives me a way to give back to the community, the people that are, you know, in this situation. Again, you know, until a couple of weeks ago, when I heard someone like German speak, the people that go out to the hospitals and talk to the parents or talk to the loved ones of someone who's about to pass to get them to donate their organs. I never really thought about that position before until a couple weeks ago, and I heard somebody talk about it. And I thought, that's got to be one of the hardest things in the world to do. Somebody who's just passed away, and you're trying to get them to save somebody else's life as they struggle with mourning their loss of their loved one. But, you know, it's kind of the way things are set up. It's the way the world works right now, and trying to get people to donate an organ is a very tough job. Receiving an organ was tougher than I thought. And at the same time, I am so grateful and appreciative to be here. Every morning I wake up and I say, thank you, God, you know, for letting me wake up again today. I pat my chest and I go, thank you, Corey, for letting me be here again today. Every time I take all the pills that I take for my anti-rejection and everything, you know, it's kind of like, hey, thank you, God, can I have another? Because that means I'm going to be here again if I'm taking another pill. So it's a very grateful and appreciative thing that I feel. When I tell people that I've had a heart transplant, and I'm always willing to share this, the look on their faces is astonishing. And then they ask questions, and I am more than happy to answer those questions, because it is a life-changing event. And, you know, you need the two sides of it. You need the people that are willing to donate their organs and willing to see what they can do by doing this for somebody else's life. And then the people who get them have to be so appreciative and grateful for receiving them and getting a second chance on life and still being here. And that's, you know, it's for people like Donate, you know, Life and Donor West and MOTTEP and all those folks. Those are the ones that make it all happen. And Corey, you're right. Corey is truly my hero. And I let him know it every day. Thank you.
Thank you so much for both of you for sharing your amazing stories. To wrap it up today, I'd like to introduce Valerie, who will be telling us more about HLA matching and the science behind the importance of multicultural organ donation.
All right. So I was given the task of 8 minutes following such wonderful presentations to discuss something that I could talk about for days on end. So we'll go from there. So next slide. So just a little bit of background about myself. Listening to everyone, I find that most people in transplant come from some kind of background, some kind of story. I have a couple for myself that led me to where I am now. And when I was 18 years old, my uncle, who was the closest I was to that I adored, passed away waiting for a kidney. And that had a really strong impact on me. And then once I became a nurse, I loved working in the ICU. And all of us have our different strengths and weaknesses, and I really love the intensity. The ICU that I happened to work at was at a level 1 trauma, and had a very interesting situation where on the same unit, there were times that I would take care of the donors and interact with their families. And I'd come on shift the next night and I was taking care of a transplant recipient, a heart or a liver or something. One in particular that really struck me is I took care of a donor who ended up donating quite a few organs. Took care of this donor, took care of the donor's family, and then came back on the next night and took care of the liver recipient. That family changed my life. The comfort that it brought to them, knowing that their loved one, that loss, was going to bring life to somebody else. This tragedy that had happened, that we had fought so hard for this patient. And, you know, I think back to Lisa's comment about being worried about not fighting hard enough in healthcare. And they do. Those nurses, those doctors, those respiratory therapists, everybody works so hard. And to shift that focus, that family, the comfort that brought them, knowing that that life was going to save, and to come on the next night and see this young individual who I had actually been taking care of in the past because he'd been in the ICU, and he was going to be okay, and we thought he was going to die. And that family's joy and gratefulness for the decision. So that's what brought me to transplant. When we're talking about matching, so I get to go back into this, a transplant program has to make sure that the organ being offered is safe to place. So there's a lot of testing that goes into it. Each organ has different criteria. So every organ has different criteria to make sure that it's safe to go in. And then there's additional factors that might be considered that could improve the longevity. So just because an organ is safe to go in doesn't always mean that it's a perfect fit, but can be. So common considerations, body size is a big one. Tissue matching, we're going to talk about HLA, human leukocyte antigens, and donor-specific antibodies, and then blood type. And one thing is ethnicity is not a consideration for matching and transplant. So as we just saw, any ethnicity can donate. The matching is what's really important. And so you can't really tell that until you get into the testing for it. So HLA is pretty complex. Your HLA is found on chromosome 6. There's a short arm and a long arm. Your HLA, there's class 1 and class 2. The 3 main ones that transplant look at is A, B, and DR. And these are specific regions on that we're like looking for markers. Next slide. When you're looking at the markers, you can actually think of these as flags. So all of us have antigens on every one of our cells that are protein markers that identify who we are. This identification is how the immune system then goes to say yes or no. So this is really helpful in viruses and bacteria. Go on, destroy them. In transplant, it's not so good. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean go on to the next slide. This one. You get half of your DNA from your father and half from your mother. So in this one, you can see that our 2 people have A, B, DR 1, 8, and 17 from the dad. That's passed on to the child. And then the mother's A2, B51, and DR 11 are also passed on to the child. This is now the child's HLA and how his immune system, his or her, is going to identify who they are. There are specialized labs that work with every transplant center and organ procurement organization to help do this testing for us. Next slide. So why are they important? So your immune systems are going to fight these invaders. And in the case of transplant, this can be made against the donor's tissue. And this is where you have to take immunosuppression as a transplant recipient. Patients form the response to the HLA of other people, and that can be blood transfusion, women in pregnancy, and then with transplant are the most important ones. The reason why this is important is if it's not kept in check, the body can then reject that new organ. So that immunosuppression is given lifelong for the protection of the organ. Next slide. Some patients have preformed antibodies from past exposure. This can make them a lot harder to match or at a higher risk of rejection. Because of this, kidney allocation has special categories that you're given nationwide access. Fortunately, kidneys can last the longest outside the body, so there is a little bit more travel that we can do with them. We also find that an organ may be able to last longer if that HLA matching is a little bit closer, especially on that one called the DR. This is only really when you have the luxury of having options between 2 donors. So most of the time with most organs, it really is the urgent need outweighs the benefit of trying to wait for something that might be a little bit closer match. However, in something like kidney transplant with living donors, you may want to do additional testing to see between one and another, because that one might be a little bit closer and last a little bit longer. For instance, a sibling has a much higher chance of donating a kidney than a friend that would last longer over time. Next slide. The other really important part of matching is blood type. As you can see on here, with a recipient and a donor, you can't give just any blood type to one versus the other. So an O recipient is actually pretty disadvantaged in the fact that they can only receive from an O donor, whereas an AB recipient can receive from anyone. What this is the markers. So if you're an A blood type, you have the A marker. If you're a B blood type, you have the B marker. If you have the AB blood type, you have both. And if you have O, it means you have the absence of the markers. So what will happen if you try to put so a B into an A, that body is going to react to that, and it's going to have a very poor outcome. Next slide. So this is the ABL breakdown of the current wait list. So if we look at this, we can see that 53% of the wait list is an O blood type, 28% currently is an A, 15% is a B, and 2.4% is an AB. And I pulled this data from last week on the 20th. Next slide. When we look at the deceased donors, we find that 47% traditionally have been O's, 37% are A's, 11 B's, and 3.4 are AB's. What this means is that our O blood group is already a little bit disadvantaged and there's not as many donors. And we can also see that the B group is a little bit disadvantaged, it's not as many donors, whereas the A group, there's more A's than the ones that are listed there. Next slide. So why are we talking about all this when it comes to multicultural? When we look at the general population, 48% of the population in the United States, or excuse me, 48% is O, 37% is A, 11% is B, and 4% is AB. 45% of Caucasians are O and 40% are A's, compared to African American and Hispanics, who are a much higher chance of being the O blood type, which means that that blood type is already disadvantaged. And then you go in and you have a little bit of that disadvantage from just the natural, the more likelihood of the blood type being an O in an African American or a Hispanic. Next slide. When we look at the current wait list by ethnicity, we can see that there's definitely a difference. So in the United States, 60% are white alone, not Hispanic or Latino, but only 40% of our wait list is Caucasian, where 28% are Black, 20% are Hispanic and Asian, and so on down. So this is from the U.S. Census Bureau from 2019, and then this wait list is what our current wait list is right now. Next slide. When we look at organ donors by ethnicity, 70% are white, 14% are Black, and 12% are Hispanic. So we already know that the Black and Hispanic population has a higher percent of O, and we know that the whites are kind of split between O and A. So we already have a wait list that's heavily populated by the different cultures, and then we're disadvantaging with blood type. So we do really need to pay attention to this as a community, even though our ethnicity does not matter when it comes to necessarily matching, but we do need to recognize that the blood type of somebody can influence our wait list. And if we're not having an African American or Hispanic population donating as much, we may not get some of those blood types for these donors that are needed. And the O blood type is continuing to be disadvantaged, so the wait list will go longer if we can't help it for now. So these kind of smaller considerations can be very useful to the groups, meaning who's already going to be disadvantaged and then who's going to wait longer, simply because we don't have enough organs as it is. Next slide. So the main conclusion is organ matching is based on blood type and the immune system and size. Some blood groups are more disadvantaged than others based on availability. And then ethnicity is not a consideration when matching organs, but there is some cultural differences there between blood types and also being able to donate. Some organs do improve based on HLA matching, but urgency and immediate need of the organ always outweighs the benefit. So the more people and the more diverse populations we can get in, we can get more people who are harder to match, as well as harder to match blood types transplanted, so that we can take that wait list of 123,000 down and hopefully help others. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Valerie. I know I learned quite a few things from that presentation and that you did all that in just 8 minutes. So thank you so much. I know that we're at time, so I want to respect everyone's evening and we'll wrap up here. But if you have any questions following the webinar, please feel free to be in touch. You're welcome to take a screenshot of the contact information. But we're so grateful that all of you were able to join, and I hope to see you guys next time.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.